Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Giri Bharat Hari Gopi Janavallabha Giri Bharat Hari Yashoda Nandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashoda Nandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachariyama Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Yashodanan Dhanavraja Jana Danjana Yamuna Tira Vanachariyama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Haribo Go Hari Bol Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavarinda ki jai, Shri Radha Gopinatha ki jai, Gaura Premanande, Krantaraj Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. That's all right. Yeah. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaiṣṇavebhyo Namo Namaha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Asadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Nārayaṇam namaskritya Naram chaiva narottamam Deving sarasvating vyasam Tato jayamudirayet. Nashta prayeshava badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavatyuttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. Good morning, everyone. We're reading from Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 2, Prayers by the Demigods, verses 11 and 12. And first we're reading together verse 11. Nāmadheyāni kurvanti Nāmadheyāni kurvanti sthānāni ca narā bhuvi sthānāni ca narā bhuvi durgeti bhadrakālīti durgeti bhadrakālīti Vijayā vaiṣṇavīti ca Vijayā vaiṣṇavīti ca Others? Nāmadheyāni kurvanti narā bhuvi durgeti bhadrakālīti Vijayā vaiṣṇavīti ca nāmadheyāni kurvanti sthānāni ca narā bhuvi kurvanti sthānāni ca narā bhuvi durgeti bhadrakālīti vaiṣṇavīti ca nāmadheyāni kurvanti narā bhuvi Bhadrakālīti Vijayā vaiṣṇavīti ca. And the second verse, they go together here, is Kumudā Caṇḍikā Kṛṣṇā Mādhavī kanyaketi ca Māyā nārāyaṇīśānī śāradety ambiketi ca. We get a lot of iti in this, in these two verses. Nāmadheyāni, different names. Kurvanti, will give. Interesting. Prabhupada puts in the future tense, although it's a present tense verb. Sthānāni, in different places. Cha, also. Narā, persons interested in material enjoyment. Bhuvi, on the surface of the globe. So much for the flat earthers. Durgeti, the name Durgā. Bhadrakālī iti, yes. Vijayā, the name Vijayā. And Vaiṣṇavī iti, cha, also. Kumudā, the name Kumudā. Caṇḍikā, the name Caṇḍikā. Kṛṣṇā, the name Kṛṣṇā. Mādhavī, the name Mādhavī. Kanyakā iti, the name Kanyakā, or Kanyā-kumārī. Cha, also. Māyā, the name Māyā. Nārāyaṇī, yes. Īśānī, śāradā, iti, thus. Ambikā, the name Ambikā. Iti, also. Cha, And, yeah. Generally, the word iti in such a context would just function as quotation marks. So, like quotation marks around each of the names. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki. Lord Krishna blessed Mādhavī by saying, in different places on the surface of the earth, people will give you different names, such as Durgā, Bhadrakālī, Vijayā, Vaiṣṇavī, Kumudā, Caṇḍikā, Kṛṣṇā, Mādhavī, Kanyakā, Māyā, nārāyaṇī, Īśānī, śāradā, and ambiketi. Purport. Because Krishna and his energy appeared simultaneously, people have generally formed two groups, the Shaktas and the Vaiṣṇavas. And sometimes there is rivalry between them. Essentially, those who are interested in material enjoyment are Shaktas. And those interested in spiritual salvation and attaining the spiritual kingdom are Vaiṣṇavas. Because people are generally interested in material enjoyment, they're interested in worshipping Mādhavī, the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vaiṣṇavas, however, are Shuddha Shaktas, or pure Bhaktas, because the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra indicates worship of the Supreme Lord's energy, Hara. A Vaishnava prays to the energy of the Lord for the opportunity to serve the Lord along with his spiritual energy. Thus, Vaishnavas all worship such deities as Radha Krishna, Sita Rama, Lakshmi Narayana, and Rukmini Dvarakādīsha, whereas Durgā Shaktas worship the material energy under different names. I'll continue, but when I read this yesterday, Prabhupada saying that Vaishnavas are Shuddha Shaktas, I became very happy because I had heard this just a few days ago in a lecture by one godbrother. He was saying, if I remember correctly, that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had made this point. And I thought, interesting. And then yesterday, there it is in black and white, Prabhupada's confirming. And I'll get back to this because Bhaktivinoda Thakur discusses this also. The names by which Mādhavī is known in different places have been listed by Vallabhacharya as follows. So Srila Prabhupada sometimes quotes Vallabhacharya. In Varanasi, she is known as Durgā. In Avanti, she is known as Bhadrakālī. In Orissa, she is known as Vijayā. And in Kulahapura, she is known as Vaiṣṇavī or Mahalakshmi. Kulahapura, I believe, is the city which is now called Kolhapur. Kolhapur is south of Mumbai, an overnight train ride. And we visited the Mahalakshmi temple there. We came into the it's a very large temple, and there's a very large courtyard. We didn't have time to go inside the temple because we had a train to catch. We were a group of devotees doing a kind of Maharashtra yatra. And this was actually our final visit of the yatra before going back to Mumbai. Incidentally, not so related, but just before that, we made a stop in Aravade. Anyone has been to Aravade? Aravade is a village which is the birthplace of Lokanath Swami, our very own Lokanath Swami. And it just so happened, I mean, we really didn't know that this was going to be the case. There was a huge festival going on in the village in celebration of ISKCON's 8th anniversary of their ISKCON Center, which Lokanath Swami arranged. It's a very nice temple complex, temple, guest house, this, that. And guess who was there? Lokanath Swami was there. So he was a very gracious host. They had a big pandal, and sort of typical Indian style, they brought us on stage with, the devotees who were with me, including we had 2 ladies from Hong Kong, and so for the crowd, this was really interesting, and we had them speak. We had the ladies speak to the crowd, and they were, as we say, blown away. Yes, and Lokanath Swami introduced me to some of his family members, 2 brothers and a sister, I think, older brothers who are his disciples. Yeah, kind of, they're like very interesting. Lokanath Swami we also visited his home, just where he grew up, a humble home, which has been renovated, made very nice. He told me that before he kind of came back to the village and started preaching there, 80% of the village were not vegetarian. He said now 80% of the village are vegetarian. Okay, so that's kind of near Kolhapur, which originally is Kulahapur. The representatives of Mahalakshmi and Ambikā are present in Bombay. Prabhupada says in parentheses here. The country known as Kamarupa, in the country known as Kamarupa, she is known as Caṇḍikā. In northern India as Śāradā, and in Cape Comorin as Kanyakā. Thus she is distributed according to various names in various places. And one might add, there are, I think it's 51 places, officially kind of the Shaktipat places in India, which are, the story is when Sati incinerated herself, Lord Shiva came. He was extremely angry, and there's different versions of the story, but he kind of flies through the air with her remains, causing trouble to the universe. And Lord Vishnu is called in, I believe, to settle things down, and with his chakra he slices her remains up into 51 pieces. And so in different places they will say this is the place of the finger, of the goddess. This is the place of her foot, and so on. Yeah. I think Kalighat, no, where is it? I just read. I think maybe it's Kalighat in Calcutta. They say is the place of one of her fingers. Srila Vijayā Dvaja Tirthapad in his Padaratnavali Tika has explained the meanings of the different representations. Māyā is known as Durgā because she is approached with great difficulty. Dur means far, then it comes to mean difficult. Ga means to go. Durgā. As Bhadra because she is auspicious, and as Kali because she is deep blue. Because she is the most powerful energy, she is known as Vijayā, because she is one of the different energies of Vishnu. She is known as Vaiṣṇavī, and because she enjoys in this material world and gives facilities for material enjoyment, she is known as Kumudā. We'll be testing you on all of this. May not. Because she is very severe to her enemies, the asuras, she is known as Caṇḍikā. And because she gives all sorts of material facilities, she is called Kṛṣṇā. In this way, the material energy is differently named and situated in different places on the surface of the globe. Notice again, Prabhupada says globe. He doesn't say India, and he doesn't say the flat earth. Okay, Lord Krishna blessed Mādhavī by saying, in quote, in different places on the surface of the earth, people will give you different names, such as Durgā, Bhadrakālī, Vijayā, Vaiṣṇavī, Kumudā, Caṇḍikā, Kṛṣṇā, Mādhavī, Kanyakā, Māyā, nārāyaṇī, Īśānī, śāradā, and ambiketi. Krishna is preparing the scene, the situation for his own appearance, right? And he has made this arrangement for shifting Balaram to the womb of Rohini, and for this Balaram will also be known as Sankarshana. Yes, Sankarshana. Sankarshana, Karshana means to draw or to pull, and a farmer is a Krishaka, one who pulls a plow. And so Krishi, Goraksha, these are activities of the Vaishyas. And Karshana is also what Balaram does with his plow. Krishna plays his flute, and Balaram, Krishna plays his flute for the cows, and so he's a cowherd, he takes care of the cows, and Balaram is a farmer. We don't hear much about that, but so the two go together, as Prabhupada would often emphasize. Cow protection and farming, these have to meet together. So he's made that arrangement, all of which it was for the purpose of purifying, for preparing the place for Krishna. Balaram is purifying the womb of Devaki, and then he has served his function there, and then he is drawn to Rohini. And then after this, we have these instructions to Māyā that she should now come, and she's going to give quite a surprise to Kamsa, isn't she? Something he's not expecting. And I think it's interesting also that this whole trouble with Kamsa begins with a voice in the sky, apparently an invisible voice, but it then comes to the point, which is coming up, of of Mādhavī, when he's going to attempt to kill her, what is she going to do? She's going to slip out of his hands and do what? She'll go up into the sky, and there she is going to laugh. And she's going to say, the person who is your enemy that you are trying to kill has already appeared elsewhere. Poor Kamsa. He is in great anxiety for himself. Okay, so we have this idea of the Shaktas, those who are worshipping the Shakti rather than Shaktiman. And Prabhupada is identifying the Shaktas with those who are interested in material enjoyment. Well, I looked this up a little bit. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, as you probably know, has written a kind of novel, a sort of didactic novel called Jaiva Dharma, in which it's didactic because he's, of course, using it as a kind of platform to teach. What is he teaching? He's teaching Vaishnava theology in quite extensive detail. But he's making it interesting. He's making it engaging by presenting in the form of a story, which consists essentially of dialogues. And several of these dialogues, some of them are sort of conversion story. Someone meets a sadhu and hears from the sadhu and then becomes a sadhu himself. But there are also encounters between Vaishnava sadhus and others. In our session with the Bhakti Shastri group yesterday, we talked about otherness. There's different kinds of otherness. So one sort of other we encounter with Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Jaiva Dharma is a Shakta. And this gentleman is named Digambara Chattopadhyaya. Digambara, you know what Digambara means? Means naked person. But he's not naked, he's actually dressed quite in rather fancy clothes. And he's going to glorify himself in this way. And he is going to meet with Advaita Das, who had been a childhood friend of Digambara. And when Digambara finds out, after so many years, where is his old friend as a child, and finds out that he's become a Vaishnava, he decides to go visit him to try to save him. And so he takes a boat, and eventually he comes to meet Advaita Das, who is living in Shantipur, and therefore his guru has given him that name, Advaita Das, because Advaita Acharya was living in Shantipur. So they meet, and they embrace warmly, and Digambara immediately quotes a song which he had composed himself. Kali tomar lila kela ke jane ma tribhuvane kabu purusha kabu nari kabu matta hau gorane. Oh dear Kali, who can fathom you, dear mother? You enjoy pastimes on the earth, sometimes in the male form, sometimes in the female form, and sometimes you are ferociously absorbed on the battlefield. And he goes on, there's 2 more verses here. Whoops. As Brahma you create, as Shiva you destroy, and as Vishnu, dear mother, you maintain the whole universe. Actually, we have this verse which seems to almost say that, but doesn't quite, in the Brahma Samhita. Srishti stiti pralaya sadhana shakti reka chayeva yasya bhuvanani vibharti durga icchānurupam api yasya chacheshtate sa govinda madi purusham tamaham bhajami. I worship Govinda, not Durga, but whose shadow, chaya, is Durga. And through your Govinda's external energy, srishti, stiti, pralaya, creation, maintenance, destruction are going on. Oh, why is that not working? Anyway, he goes on like this. Oh, and then he says, as Krishna, you, Kali, play the flute throughout the forests of Vrindavan. Again you appear as Gauranga, immersing Navadvip with the sound of Sankirtan. Hare Krishna. And then he goes on, Advaita Das received him warmly. Welcome, dear brother, come and sit down. So they sit together and they discuss. And eventually it gets more and more, shall we say, sticky, the discussion. And at one point, they're discussing philosophy, and Advaita Das says, so, are you, Digambara, are you Purusha or Prakriti? And Digambara answers, I am Purusha, and Nāmadheyāni, it's another name for Māyā, Devi for Durga, and Nāmadheyāni is Prakriti. Shishi Radha Gopina Ki Jai. I am Purusha and Nāmadheyāni is Prakriti. So long as I am in the illusory conditioned state, she is my mother. However, hold on to your seats. However, when I am liberated, she becomes my wife. Hare Krishna. There is a Greek tragedy that tells something about this. What's the king's name? Oedipus. Yes, the Oedipus complex. He killed his father and he married his mother and had children with her. So, Hare Krishna. Here it is, Shaktas. Advaita Das says, without doubt I have now grasped your philosophy well. You will change from being the son of your mother to being her husband. Tell me, where did you learn such ideas? Digambara, my friend, I am not wearing blinders like you who are only interested in the Vaishnavas alone. I have associated with many sannyasis, brahmacharis, mystic tantric yogis, and so on. In addition, I have intensely studied the Tantra Shastras before I could acquire this knowledge. If you wish, I can school you and prepare you as well. So like this, at one point, Advaita thinks to himself, how do I get rid of this guy? I don't think he's good association for me. They talk about culture. What is culture? What is civilization? Because this Shakta is saying we should be cultured. We should dress very nicely. We should interact with each other in very artful ways, and so on. And so Advaita says, human life is short and inevitably has numerous disturbances. Thus, with our limited time, it is imperative to serve the Supreme Lord, Sri Hari, with unmotivated simplicity. The culture and sophistication which you present as synonyms are merely exercises in self-deception. If a human being remains on the path of truthfulness, his life is honest and simple. Leaving this straight path for that of deception, he becomes sly, engages in unscrupulous dealings, and tries to hide his crookedness behind a facade of sweet words and postured civility. Truthfulness and simplicity are laudable, they're praisable human characteristics, whereas the culture and sophistication you speak of generally lack these qualities. True culture, in its pristine state, in its pure state, shorn of all immorality, immorality is removed, is found amongst the Vaishnavas, and the culture of the non-Vaishnavas is tainted by sinful ways. Real culture means sabhyata, worthiness to participate in a sabha, serious, truthful assembly. In other words, simple decency. But the contemporary definition of culture is simply a method of masking mischievous internal motives which are gradually further perverted into deceit. And it goes on like this. There was, I think, one more section I had marked. Oh yes, here. Digambar at one point says, are you or are you not under a particular energy? Advaita Das says, yes, we are Jiva Shakti. We have escaped from the influence of the illusory material Māyā Shakti and taken shelter under the control of the transcendental absolute Chit Shakti. Digambara. That makes you Shaktas, the worshippers of Shakti. Advaita Das. Yes, of course. Vaishnavas are the real Shaktas. We are under the patronage of Sri Radhika, the embodiment of the Chit Shakti. We worship Kṛṣṇā, but under Sri Radhika's loving guardianship. Hence, who can claim to be more authentic Shaktas than us, Vaishnavas? We do not see any differences between a true Shakta and a Vaishnava. However, those who worship only the Māyā Shakti, without taking complete shelter within the spiritual Chit Shakti, are admittedly, to some extent, Shaktas, but cannot be considered Vaishnavas. Ultimately, they are gross materialists. Durgā Devi has made the following statement, and he goes on. Yeah, so Vaishnavas are the real Shaktas. Haribol. So thinking about this a little, and the fact that Prabhupada says that the goddess is seen all over the globe, as you may know, there are so many representations of the Madonna. And in particular, in deity form, there are these black Madonnas. And I looked it up in, guess what, Wikipedia. That's right. I was surprised at how many. There are between 400 and 500 black Madonnas in the world. Some of them are copies of others. Years ago, we visited one of these shrines in Bavaria, South Germany, a famous one, which the previous Pope had also visited. Very small church in Alt-Oerting, but very, very nice murti of the Madonna, nicely dressed. And I thought, oh, Hare Krishna. It was a happy surprise to see. Sorry? Madonna? Maria. Maria, generally Maria with child, with Jesus. Yeah. These are places of pilgrimage. There's one very famous place in Poland, Częstochowa. Sri Arjuna knows. Have you been there? Yeah. Thousands of people go there at different times. That I don't know about. Oh, that may be somewhere else, because this Madonna is actually a painting. Anyway, so here we have a kind of presence, we might want to say, of Shakti. And of course, especially in South Europe, there seems to be a lot of emphasis on worship of Maria, maybe even more than Jesus in some ways, because she is seen as merciful, as giving grace. There are processions of Maria, and so on and so forth. In Argentina also. Yeah. So these things, these are sort of, we might want to say, outcroppings of this tendency to worship the feminine divinity. And we understand in our tradition that the source of all feminine divinity is Sri Radhika, is Srimati Radharani. A step further, I was thinking about what's come to be called feminism, of which there's myriad varieties, and amongst these there's what is called ecofeminism, and amongst ecofeminism, feminist ideas, there are also quite a variety. And the general idea of ecofeminism seems to be that the feminine identification with nature is important, and that modern society, especially in its patriarchal domination of the male, has worked itself out as the destruction of nature by industry, by technology, all of which has a kind of masculine aspect to it of controlling nature, and yes, essentially, as we see, is happening, destroying nature, destroying the very place where we want to live and be happy. We're cutting off the branch that we are sitting on because of this overbearing imbalance, according to the ecofeminist idea, that masculinity must dominate over femininity. This is elaborated in many books, much literature, One of the earlier writers was Rosemary Reuter, who wrote a book called Gaia and God. She's Christian, and what she's done is taken the idea of Earth as Gaia, which is the Greek name of the globe, of the Earth globe. And she's doing what's called constructive theology to try to recover from the Christian tradition a balance to, yes, essentially protect women and nature, because the two go together. And also this has been identified, one form of ecofeminism is called vegetarian ecofeminism, in which the idea is articulated quite extensively that meat eating is identified with masculinity. And there's a book by, what's her name, Carol Adams, called The Sexual Politics of Meat. The Sexual Politics of Meat, in which she shows very in great detail how masculinity is identified with meat eating, and this empowers people, men. They think, to be a man, I have to eat meat, and then that is taken up by the advertising industry and so on and so forth. And there's a whole history to this. So we can see some interesting connections there. And if we think of ecofeminism as possibly a form of Shaktism, possibly a more positive side of Shaktism in certain respects, then we might find value in that, which gives us a channel of communication with people who are appreciating these ideas. Right. So these are some of the thoughts I have. All of this in relation to Mādhavī, who is being instructed by Krishna to do some nice service for Krishna and for the world, and she's also being prepared to appear on the earth to accommodate people's material desires. Hare Krishna. Kurantara Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai.
So if I understand correctly, the Krishna's spiritual energy is personality and the material energy is different personality.
Yes, there is a sense of oneness and difference. I think I mentioned, did I, the other day, that Jiva Goswami explains in his Sandarbhas that there is a spiritual Durga Devi as well as a material. So there's apparently a Chit Shakti Durga Devi. However, of course, the Durga Devi that is generally worshipped is not that Durga, but the Durga Devi of the external energy. Yeah.
I was just kind of thinking they would like meet and have a conversation.
Durga, spiritual Durga material, they could meet and have a conversation. Radharani and Durga Devi. Well, or one expanding as the other. Because Devi Krishna Mayi Prokta Radhika Paradevata Sarva Shakti Mayi Sarva Shakti Mayi Devi. It's saying that Devi Radharani is the source of all forms. Sarva Lakshmi Mayi Sarva Kanti Sanmohini Para. Radhika, Radharani, is the source of all Lakshmis and all forms of the goddess. That's in Chaitanya Charitamrita.
So when you read the 1,000 names of Srimati Radharani, then also these names are all mentioned also.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's just interesting that I think it was in the story of Vijayā that there was this idea of hunting. There was this parallels drawn behind between hunting and sexual pursuits.
Yeah.
So that kind of resonates with that idea of meat eating. It's kind of a parallel there, I see.
Yes. Yes, very good. All these things are tied together. Yes.
So the definition, we know that sense enjoyment leads to suffering. So they're praying to Durgā to suffer.
They're praying to Durga, please make me suffer. And Durga is saying, all right, if that's what you want, why not? Yeah, it seems so. Yeah, there's, in the second canto, first chapter, I think, is this quite long list of different forms of devas that one can worship in order to get particular benedictions. And what is the concluding verse to that series? It's a famous verse. I can't remember the first line at the moment, but it's saying worship Krishna. Whether you have all desires, no desires. Huh? Akama, that's it. Akama sarvakamova. Moksha kama udaradi. Tivrena bhakti yogena. Yayedam purusham param. Yeah. So tivra means very sharp, penetrating, like the rays of the sun. So by very intense bhakti. So Sutta Goswami is, Shukadev, by that time it's Shuka. Shuka is saying, yeah, you can worship all these, but if you want the best, do bhakti yoga to Krishna. No suffering. Yeah.
One sentence that we read stood out for me is when Ambiketi said that we worship Krishna but under the guardianship of Srimad-Bhagavatam. Guardianship is the first time.
Yeah, the word guardian it's a nice word. You all know this word. Guardian. A guardian is a protector. Often the word is used for an orphan who is adopted by parents. The parents are then the guardian of that child. So Radharani is our guardian. People speak of guardian angels, which I think is another form of maybe some species of Shaktism. It's kind of popular today. I have my guardian angel. Anybody here? You have your guardian? You have a guardian angel? Huh? Oh, yeah. Yes. The Protestants objected to all of that. proliferation of divinity. They said they didn't like that. Yeah.
I heard that Prabhupada said something about, I don't know if you can confirm that or correct it, that in Vaishnavism we have Radharani as the feminine aspect, and in Christianity they have Maria as the feminine aspect. Have you heard that before?
That Prabhupada said that?
Yeah.
Could be. I don't know. Yeah. All right. Wish you all a wonderful day today. Serving their lordships. Shri Radha Gopinath ki. Grantaraj Srimad-Bhagavatam ki. Srila Prabhupada ki. Gaur Premanande. Jai.